What's up, everybody? Steve Butts here with my close personal friend, Vince Ingenito.
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
I'm good, Vince. How are you? I'm super
awesome.
excited.
Oh, so hype.
Yeah, so we just got this in today. Sega just announced or revealed the first trailer for Total War Warhammer.
Oh, so exciting.
Super exciting. A lot of fans of the series have been waiting for this. A lot of fans are super upset, obviously, though, that they're not abandoning, but they're taking a diversion from the sort of historical setting that Total War has been known for. But I'm super excited to see a fantasy take on that genre, on that particular franchise.
Absolutely, and I think there's a good fit, too, because so many of the elements, morale and positioning that play into the Total War franchise are a big part of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles tabletop game.
Absolutely. Well, let's break this down just a little bit. So here we have, we've got a priest. I'm guessing of. I
think it's a light priest. Yeah,
right.
A light priest or a light wizard.
Lore of Light. Yeah, that's this is the College of Wizardry in the Empire. They're divided into a bunch of different schools.
Right, six different schools.
This guy's wearing the white robes, and he's got sort of the snake-like.
The snakes around. Yeah, that's the big thing. They usually have staves with snakes on them. It's not on his staff, but it's around his neck. So yeah, pretty sure that he's Lore of Light.
He's got a book there. Tomes are obviously very important in this world. This has got the symbol of chaos on this side.
That's right.
And then something else on the front. What are we seeing here on the front of this book, Vince?
Oh, on the front is the symbol of
Tzeentch.
Oh, right. That is Tzeentch. Right, that is Tzeentch. That's right.
Sort of the god of chaos, change, kind of like a very disruptive force.
And very Lovecraftian also. Kind of an atypical move. You kind of always think of Khorne, the horned, like, berserkers, gods of, war-like kind of faction of chaos. But this actually is more of a kind of, almost a horror kind of vibe, and you get some of that from the things he's talking about, the unnamed horrors that are lurking in the background.
Absolutely, and we also point out the Lore of Light wizards. They're very peaceful. They're very much about like, hey, let's all be nice to each other. Let's all be friends. And things are obviously going super wrong for this guy, which is a great way to kick off this game. So moving on from this, he opens the book. There's all sorts of writing in here, and this again is very much in keeping with the franchise. Also has that kind of Lovecraftian vibe that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we zoom in here on a greenskin war boss. Yeah. So the greenskins in Warhammer are that's the sort of collective name for the orcs and the goblins.
Yep.
Together, the orcs really being kind of more important in that relationship.
Yeah, they're the bosses there, and the goblins are just kind of there at their beck and call, more or less part of their horde, their thrall.
Yeah, so we're seeing war boss here. The orcs, their cavalry, they ride on boars. They don't ride on horses, which is a really interesting sight here. We get this. You can see them with the big choppas in the air and the banners. I love the banners. You always see that in ranks of units in the Warhammer tabletop game. So I love that that's included as well.
And of course that's a big part of how they visually present stuff in the Total War franchise. It's always by those banners. You can tell the units apart.
Right, and the big group of the orc army is called the
Wow.
I love that so much, right?
I love it.
There's another really interesting bit here. You're seeing a bunch of orcs flying in on wyverns.
On wyverns, yeah. Not usually that many. You usually just see maybe a war boss will be on one, but to see that many, it either means there's lots of, could there be multiple war bosses at this one? That'd be a pretty big deal if that was the case.
I should mention the scale that we're seeing here. Probably not super reflective of what the game's going to be like. This is all obviously also not in-game footage as far as I can tell.
Right, of course.
They're going to be building this, I think, on Total War 3, if I'm not mistaken, which was the engine they used for Attila. But yeah, see sort of the city in the distance. This, to me, totally says Warhammer. It's a big army of orcs and wyverns. You see there sort of in the lower left or lower right. There's a couple of giants even on there as well. Yeah.
Which doesn't seem completely out of the realm of what the orcs would have fighting with them.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So moving on from this, we get, we pull back on the city, super fiery, and then back to the book. This priest is looking again and moves on to the next faction that we're going to cover here, Vampire Counts.
Yes, Vampire Counts. So I played a little bit in the fantasy tabletop games, and the guy we've got there is Manfred von Karstein. The von Karsteins are kind of the most famous and most powerful and well known of the vampire bloodlines. There's different bloodlines of the Vampire Counts in this universe. Particularly notable, we don't see much of the Vampire Counts here, but Manfred is infamous for having betrayed Vlad von Karstein to his death.
Right.
And so he's kind of a betrayer and famous figure for the Vampire Counts.
Yeah, and he's riding on a zombie dragon here, which I think is just it's a cool unit to have.
Very cool, really, and pretty typical of the von Karsteins. Are always kind of mounted on some kind of large mechanical / undead looking dragony thing.
And we should mention, CA is absolutely confirmed that there are going to be flying units in this game, which is a first for the series. You've had samurais, you've had knights, you've had legionnaires, but you've never had anything like this. So I have no idea how that's going to work, because I know when they introduced naval battles as part of the battlefield, I liked it, but there were some growing
There's
pains
some growing
with
pains
that.
there,
Yeah.
absolutely, and there could be with this too if they don't. Obviously, if you introduce something that's really powerful, like a flying unit, you're going to have to introduce something that's designed to deal with it. So I don't know if there's going to be a new kind of unit that's kind of focused on that, or if they're going to kind of, co-opt a unit that's existing and kind of give it upgrades or change its functionality so that it can deal with this. Very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the hero units are super effective in the tabletop game. So, how do you balance that?
Yeah, especially the vampire counts have some crazy hero units.
So we pass on here to some interesting geometric runes there. The Dwarven Faction is up next. These guys are the Empire's staunchest allies in the world of Warhammer. So it's no surprise that they're a faction that they're absolutely including at launch. These dwarves here are firing cannons. The dwarves, the tech isn't quite 100% faithful to the period that some of the other factions have to deal with. But yeah, I love the dwarves in Warhammer. They're always one of my favorite factions. And here you see them taking on a couple of Arachnaroks, which again, like this is a unit you would see maybe one or two of on the battlefield. Just to see a couple sort of coming at these dwarves is amazing. And you can see there, now we're finally getting a glimpse at some of the snotlings and some of the goblins. These guys ride into battle on towers they construct on the back of these gigantic spiders, which is just, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, who, if I remember correctly, they kind of revere as gods. The spiders actually, they worship them, and so they ride them into battle. Also worth noting that they're showing these firearms from the dwarves rather. In the tabletop game, firearms like this can be pretty chaotic. Sometimes they misfire, sometimes spectacularly so, and really damage the users or people around them. I'm wondering if those kinds of elements are going to play into the gameplay of Total War.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't heard much about that, but definitely an intriguing possibility. We move on here to focus on the Empire. Now that's the symbol of Karl Franz.
Karl Franz, right? The great general, their emperor, actually, in the current lore of Warhammer. And it's interesting what he's. If we keep going,
so we pull back on this. That's actually the breastplate of Deathclaw, the Imperial Griffin that he rides in the battle, which is amazing.
A long time, yeah. It's so cool to see him realized in this way.
And in the tabletop version, I mean, seeing one of these gigantic figures, like, that's really what you play this game for, is getting that gigantic dragon or that gigantic griffin. Over here, this is another member of the Imperial College of Wizardry. I'm guessing this guy is an astronomer because he's got, all these sort of lenses and telescopes and, measuring devices on him, which would make him, I believe, part of the Celestial Order. Mm-hmm. And so that's another big thing that's new for this series is magic. These sort of not game-breaking, but rule-breaking.
Game-changing, yeah.
Effects that you can bring down. And I've always thought that'd be really cool. We should mention Third Age, the mod for Medieval 2 Total War, which allows you to play in sort of a Lord of the Rings style battle. Right. One of the most popular ways to play that game. It's been downloaded millions of times, and I can't imagine CA looks at that and doesn't say, hey, we should do something
Hey, we should probably do something like that. And again, just like the firearms of the dwarves, I wonder, magic is also very powerful in Warhammer Fantasy, but also very chaotic, and it can bring a lot of chaos and damage to the users and to the users' allies as well. So I'm wondering if it'll be as simple as a call down that's just really powerful, or if they'll balance it in some other ways by making there be possibly negative effects for you and your allies. That would be interesting to me, an interesting risk reward.
Super interesting to see how that develops. You see here Karl Franz leading his troops into battle. Two great armies clashing, the Empire's Knights and the Goblin War Chiefs, or the Orc War Bosses.
And now, of course,
things are going too well for this guy.
Going through this guy's entire body.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what this is, if this is some sort of mutation or whatever, but obviously, like, this guy is having a transformative experience here.
Sure, to say the least. And, again, we did identify the mark of Tzeentch on the book that he's looking at. Tzeentch is the god of mutation, as well as the god of change and fate. And it's becoming increasingly clear. I don't think this guy's going to get okay.
Yeah, and we see here in a minute, for me, what was one of the most exciting parts of the trailer here is the reveal here at the end. As the smoke clears, our rules have changed. We talked about magic, flying, some of the other stuff.
First times for this franchise, but then here, this is the big shot for sure. If you weren't sure already.
So that is
most certainly Tzeentch.
None other than Tzeentch. And I love the scale of this figure when he lands in the shot. And I'm just super excited to see him potentially being on the battlefield, not just sort of a narrative element that's used to drive the cutscenes of the game.
Yeah, because usually in the game, the actual Chaos Gods themselves aren't necessarily on the board. It's usually their followers or disciples of them, or it's modifiers to existing units. But this is the idea of actually having the actual Chaos God on the board in play is pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Well, Vince, I'm super excited. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, just I'm really happy to see that they're taking this awesome framework of Total War and opening it up to a different paradigm of gameplay. I think the possibilities are pretty fairly close to endless, and I'm looking forward to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I mean, we should mention, obviously, CA has assured everybody that they're still interested in making the historical games. They have parallel teams working in development on this and other games. But, yeah, for me, I've wanted a fantasy Total War for a while, and Warhammer's a great franchise to make it happen.
And to see the fact that it's going to be a trilogy is what they're saying, part of a trilogy, that's super exciting, too. So this is not the last we're going to see of Warhammer Fantasy in the Total War universe.
Absolutely, yeah, and they mentioned a couple extra expansions. You know, we didn't see the Bretonnians, we didn't see the Wood Elves. There are plenty of other awesome armies in this world that we can't wait to see more of. So, for more on that and all the awesome things you're into, you're already in the place you need to be. IGN.